Hey, welcome to the Real Dad Fitness Podcast. This is PT. Welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome one and all. I'm your other co-host, Jonathan. Hope you're all having a stellar week and staying fit out there. And if not, hopefully we can help.
Nice. That was succinct. That was good mission statement material right there. So we are. Hey, if it's your first time joining in, what took you so long? It's our 13th episode, but welcome. We're a conversational podcast. We talk about fitness, and we're old friends. We chat it up and we talk fitness. So that's the plan for today. So that being said, how is it going, Jonathan, with you? Why does it take a sip of my red wine?
Good. I've weather held me back a little bit this week on my fitness goals. Not too terrible, but we were having some pretty crazy weather out here in Colorado. So generally I run at night. I've been started a week or two ago on a half marathon training program. So we were having like hail and tornadoes and craziness last night, so I missed my long run of the week. But I made whatever, improvised. I did I have a pretty good elliptical machine, so I went on that. Basically put it up for some hardcore hills for 40 minutes and called it good.
Nice. So talk to us a little bit about the half marathon training program, and how you feeling about that so far? Because you've done this half marathon thing before. Give us the backstory and how you feel, what you feel like it's going to do this time for you.
Well, having done it before, I'm, totally know what I'm getting myself into. For anybody out there that wants to train for a marathon or a half marathon, one, start with a half marathon. Don't start with a marathon. Two, all the programs are going to basically be the same kind of thing, where you basically start off on a week. Week one, you do either 4 or 5 runs per week, depending on your program. They start off all small, like a bunch of 3-mile runs with like 1 4-mile run, and then you do a long run on your last day of the week, be it Sunday or Saturday, whatever you choose for your last day of the week. And each week, those runs get up higher and higher and higher. Most programs are either 12 or 16 weeks. And then about 2 or 3 weeks before the actual race, you'll kind of peak out. You'll do your longest long run. So you'll do, my longest run on this will be 12 miles for this training program. If it's a marathon, your longest run is going to be about 23 miles for training. And then you step down for a week or two. So your second to last week will be a little less. And then the week before is pretty minimal running and training, kind of resting your body up, ready for that big race. So that's kind of how the training goes if you're going to go run a big long race like that. Half marathon training is like cake compared to marathon training. Half marathon, like I said, your longest run in a half marathon training is 12 miles. So you don't have to put like aside tons of time. But like if you're marathon training, some of your weekday runs will be 12, 13 miles, and then your weekend runs will be 23 miles. So you really have to like plan ahead. You really have to watch your diet. You have to practice things like eating while running and drinking while running, because if you're going to do an actual marathon, you're supposed to consume, I think it's about 1,800 calories and 64 ounces of water during the race, because during a race that long, your body actually uses up all the short-term energy that you have, the little stored energy you have to do stuff like work out, and you actually need to replenish that during the course of the race, or you're going to bonk out, which basically means you run out of energy and you're going to have to like feel like crap, you're going to end up walking, blowing your time. So it's really complex to do, or I should say more complicated, more dedication to do a full marathon. So definitely if you're going to start, start smaller. Even if you're going to try and start big, start with a half at most. But it's good. It feels good, and it gets easier every time. Like I can let myself go in the winter as far as running goes. I was staying in shape. I was, working out, trying to build a little bit of muscle during those winter months. And doing light cardio, and certainly like my first run back, for myself, I would have considered it really slow running. But even like after 1 week, I shaved like from run number 1 to the end of my first week, which was 5 runs later or whatever, I shaved like 30 seconds a mile off my time. Nice. Of course, that's gonna, come to a screeching, or not a screeching halt, but that improvement's gonna, dramatically decrease. But
man, if you can shave 30 seconds a week off, that would be great.
Right, and then I'm going to set a world record later on this year. So,
right. Awesome.
Yeah.
We did a half marathon together, and I definitely found like the people who do those half marathon programs, they know what they're doing. like if you follow the plan, you'll be able to finish the race or whatever. But like you said, the hardest part is just the time commitment and getting out the time to do it. But if you can run a reasonable distance without walking, and you follow a half marathon training plan, you can. I mean, it all depends on what your goals are. You're not going to set a world's record if you haven't run that distance before, but if your dream is just to run a half marathon or whatever, it's definitely doable. By the way, while you were talking, I had a great product idea. So you know how you always see those like 26.2 or 13.1 like stickers on the back of cars. So here's my idea. It would be like a 26.2 sticker, but then it would be crossed out as if in handwritten, and then put like 22.6 or whatever, as if like something terrible happened during the race and you were unable to finish. Be a great conversation piece, kind of a thing.
Well, it would be a conversation. It would certainly confuse the heck out of me if I sat on the back of somebody's car.
Right. And you could even, if you wanted to go a step further, you could even have a little stick man on there with like it'd be a stick man, but there'd be a little break in like the leg,
Right.
There we go. So that's my business idea that today. Never do it, so feel free, anyone, to take it.
Okay.
Cool. So you're like 2 weeks into the training program?
Yep.
Nice.
So
cool.
Yeah.
And do you have like a goal that you're going? So because you're not running a half marathon, right? Or are you?
No, I might in fall just because I'll be in shape to do it, and I'll see how I am. But my actual goal, my half marathon training, is actually oddly enough for a 5K, which sounds kind of crazy, but the 5K is the Warrior Dash in Colorado at Copper Mountain, and I started it 12 weeks out. So at the end of my training, instead of doing a half marathon, I'm gonna be running the Warrior Dash. And the reason I'm training for 13 miles to run a 5K, 13.1 to run a 5K, is because it's a 5K at altitude. And I mean, I'm at altitude now. I'm at 5,500 feet or whatever where I live. The race is at I think it's like 10.5 or 11.5, 11,500 feet, which makes a big difference. So the air is really thin, and then it's like a 30-degree grade on rough terrain. So it is the racing part, the running part of that is so much harder than running on the road and running at a normal altitude. So I'm trying to train really hard. My goal is to do really well at the Warrior Dash this year. My real goal, and again, might not happen. I'm hoping it happens this year, and if it doesn't, I'll come back and train harder next year. But I'm hoping to get in the top 10.
Nice.
So at least top 10 for my age group, and I'd like to be top 10 overall, because what the hell? Try and beat some 18, 20-year-olds.
Screw those kids.
That's right. What do they know?
And by the way, I just saw it posted on Facebook a minute ago. I was looking at Facebook. So we were having some technical difficulties to getting started, so I was looking at Facebook for a second, and someone posted something along the lines of, do you realize that the kids who are graduating from high school this year were born in 1996, which was the year that we graduated high school? So that was like, man. Actually, I hadn't read that, so I had to share my depression with you.
Sure, thanks.
No problem.
But yeah, how do you feel? Okay, so now we're getting up there, whatever. Not that we're old, but I'm 36. Dads, we got kids. I still feel like, and I mean, maybe this is part of my fitness goal or one of the things that drives me. Because I mean, like now, like you said, when we graduated from high school, kids that were born that year are now graduating from high school.
Right.
So, like I feel like I'm in better shape than most 18-year-olds. Maybe that I'm delusional, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think like your average 18-year-old probably couldn't kick out a half marathon, and I'm certainly stronger now than I was. I think guys have that advantage where we continue to grow stronger and stronger, to a point. I still feel like I'm there. I still feel like I'm on the upswing.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm losing anything yet. I mean, part of it is just that I was out of shape for a long time, and now I'm getting more in shape. So,
right.
So for me, I'm definitely ahead of the game. But part of it's like mental too. Like I always feel like if you asked me how old I am, and I just like was not thinking about it at all, and like did not stop to consider that, my answer would always be 27. I feel like 27 is like the age where I'm just like stuck. Like this is my age, and I don't know if that'll eventually go up over time or not. But I just feel like I'm 27 for some reason in my head. So
I like it. I don't know. I guess I certainly don't consider myself as old as I am either.
Mhm.
Like you said, unless I actually think about it, think about depressing crap like, oh my God.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Stuff like when I realized I graduated college more than a decade ago, like thoughts like that, way more than a decade ago now. Like, wow,
Right.
I feel a little old.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking the other day about, and I talked about this with someone. It might have been you. I'm not sure, but I was thinking recently about how, like, like when our parents were kids, that seems like so ancient ago, and like the world was so different. And then I was thinking, man, our world is so much was basically exactly the same when we were kids as when our parents were the kids, compared to like the way that the world is now for our kids compared to when we were kids. It's like way more different than it was between our parents and us, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I don't know, you might be right. It's certainly like, of course, technology is a big dater of things.
Right.
Like dates things, and like, when like obviously cell phone technology will be a huge one that'll date us. Like when my kid's 10 and I'm like, oh yeah, when I was 10, cell phones didn't exist. I didn't have that. I'm sure that's just gonna blow his mind. Like,
Yeah, no, yeah, I've had a lot of those conversations with my daughter where like tried to explain like stuff like if you wanted to watch a TV show when I was a kid, you like had to wait till that TV show was on, and it was only on like once a week or whatever. And she has a really hard time like even understanding the concept of what I'm talking about. It's like just so foreign or whatever. And then every once in a while she'll be like, "Well, wait, did they have TVs when you were a kid?" Like what I'm saying sounds just so foreign and crazy that she like totally loses her sense of was recently invented. So yeah.
all
Yeah.
right, okay. Well, I don't know if that's off topic or not, but
Hey, hey, we're a conversational podcast. I said that at the beginning, so
you
that
did. I
means
know.
that means we can veer off wildly, of course. I have an article that goes along a little bit with your marathon training that I wanted to talk to you about, and I can't decide if this article is inspiring or depressing. I kind of want to get your take on that, and I think it's kind of interesting. Um, it's not as good as the Seal article last week. I can never beat
Sure.
that. That's pretty much the peak when that guy got bit by the seal. But it is interesting, and this kind of goes back to the article you wrote about a while back about genetics, which I thought was really interesting, and how much genetics play a role and all that stuff. So check this out. So I'm not going to read the article. So I'm going to I'm sorry if I get a couple of the facts wrong here or there, but I'm just going to. It'll be more interesting if I just kind of paraphrase. So this guy is Steve Way in England. He's 32 years old. He weighs about like 230 pounds, pretty out of shape, eats a lot of junk food. He smokes like a chimney, smokes pack a day, pretty out of shape, dude. So his friends say he notices there's a marathon coming up. His friends are training for the marathon. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll do the marathon. 3 weeks out, he starts training for the marathon. All right. He goes in the classic like dumb out of shape guy move. Like I'm just gonna go run this marathon. It's like something that I would do that like totally not prepared for at all. He goes, runs the marathon, gets 3 hours and 3 minutes, which is pretty good. Pretty good. So that was in 2006. All right. So then, at that point, you think he might be like, well, I'm pretty good at this marathon thing. I should like, get in shape, see what I can do with it. But no, for the next year and a half, he didn't like exercise at all, and it was just like kept going with his stuff or whatever. And then he at that point started having some health problems, and he was like, I gotta get in shape, man. I was pretty good at that marathon thing. So then he started training for marathons. And so at this point, he's like 33, 34 years old. So since then, he's been training for marathons, and he's now this year going to be representing England in the Commonwealth Games in the marathon event. He's got like a 2 hour 10 minute or something marathon. So it's crazy. This guy is just like he was just like an awesome athlete and just like never knew it because he was always way out of shape. He said he was like completely out of shape his entire life. And eventually he just figured it out. He became an ultra marathoner or marathoner and really good at it. So I don't know what to take away from this story. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Now, first off, I want to say that this is the exception to all rules. Okay. So I mean, yes, if anyone wants to go out there and try running a marathon, just like straight up, go for it. And again, yeah, this, that article I wrote about genetics and how much they influence, I still really stand by that. Like, there are obviously, like, whatever, what are we up to now? 7, 8 billion people in the world, whatever. A lot of people in the world. So you get some, on the very tip top of the curves, you get some weird anomalies. Like, there's that one show called, I don't know, Superheroes or Superhumans or something like that by Stan Lee, where they run around and find people with odd genetic traits. Like this guy would definitely fit the bill for that show.
Right.
Like, one was a guy that could just, like, couldn't get electrocuted. He could, like, stick his finger in a light socket and stuff like that. And as it turned out, it was because he had, like, ultra dry skin. There was no moisture in his skin, and that's what prevented him from being electrocuted. Obviously, most of us have moisture in our skin, and we'll die if we stick our fingers in light sockets. Just as most people will not be able to run I would think there's certainly a genetic curve. Some people will be able to run better and do better at certain events than others. I think I obviously am not like this dude at all, but running comes, whatever, easier or more naturally or something like that to me. Just, it could be super simple, like maybe I have, like, slightly larger lungs or lung capacity or something like that. Or, I'm a really tall dude, maybe that plays into it. I have long strides, whatever. Maybe a factor of a whole bunch of things. Like Michael Phelps, obviously that guy was designed to swim. So you have those, like, but on the other hand, everyone can swim, more or less.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Everyone can run a marathon, more or less. So.
Yeah, what made me think of your article is I think you talked in that article about a little bit about that whole thing of the the people at the top of the curve and the outliers, the anomalies. So that's what made me think of your article. I was like, yeah, it definitely illustrates that at that point.
Right, so, and that's as extreme as I've ever heard. Somebody being, like, to be out of shape and to be able to run a 3:03. For people that don't run marathons, like, breaking 3 hours is when you're ahead of the pack by a long shot. If you go to, like, the Denver Marathon or the whatever marathon out there, and you've got 20,000 people running a marathon, 200 are going to break 3 hours. That's not an easy feat, and to do it without training is.
Yeah. It was funny. He talked. One cool thing about the guy is he not the first time he ran the marathon, but this when he actually kind of got serious about it. After the year and a half or whatever, he started a blog and he started writing about all his, like, training and like recording all his times. So it is kind of interesting. I was looking through it today and like recording all his times and, like, the insane, like, improvement he was making, like basically superhuman strides or whatever. But it is funny because he posts, like, the pictures of himself, like, at the first marathon and, like, the people he finished with who like definitely look like elite athletes, and he's like just this, like, that guy was like sure that had to piss off some of the people that he just beat out.
Sure.
But yeah, so I was interested. I had mixed emotions about that article. I was like, is this supposed to be inspiring me or what? I guess it's just an interesting anomaly.
Yeah. Because I find it a little depressing. Like, oh my gosh, that sucks. Some dude can just do that, no problem. But no big deal. I guess it doesn't really hurt me in any way. So.
Right.
Although if I was an elite athlete getting bumped out of the Olympics for that guy, I might be a little pissed about it.
Yeah. Oh man, I traded 18 extra years from him. So have you ever thought about that though? Just at a total side note, like, what if there's some sport that you're, like, totally geared for that, like, you've never played? Like, what if I'm just designed to be an awesome rugby player or something like that?
Sure.
And I would never know. Maybe I'm
sure,
an elite athlete at some weird sport.
I've kind of thought of that a little bit, only because one, I seem to take well to training in sports and things like that, and, like, I grew up from an extreme, not sports orientated family. Like, to this day, I don't think my dad's ever watched a sporting event. Maybe at some point in his life he's been in a room that the Super Bowl's on, but, like, literally, I and this sounds unbelievable, but, like, I'm sure my father right now cannot name a professional athlete. Maybe you might know, like, Michael Jordan or something, but certainly nothing from this decade.
Right. Wow.
And so I mean, like, we really didn't, like, they never, even when I joined sports, it was frowned upon. to like what are you doing wasting your time kind of thing. So there's a lot of sports I never played, which is a long way around to say that. So I never played like football, not a day in my life. And as it turns out, like I think now that I have like the build of a wide receiver, I just never, never played one down in football.
Right.
Never played most sports. So like I was like, oh, I wonder if I would have been really good at anything. I'll never know.
Well, so have you thought about like getting your son in like some youth football program or something, just in case?
I know.
Fair enough.
No, I mean like I'm certainly not opposed to him joining sports. I'm going to encourage whatever he wants to do. Like right now, the only thing he showed interest in is joining karate. But like I'm certainly keeping my eye out. I don't want to push anything on him, but yeah, no, I'm all about encouraging him to join any sports that he wants to join and try it out. And if I see something that he likes and excels in, I'll push it. But on the other hand, I'm not going to like cram him, into anything. So.
Right.
And honestly, I thought, I certainly still am looking at. He's 6. I'm really keeping an eye out for what he likes, and he's not a sports kid. From what I can tell about him, like right now, he's really geared towards building and writing and drawing and creative aspects. And like we play sports and catch and stuff, but even that, he's like he likes to run, he likes to do stuff like that, but he's not a big. We'll play a little sports games, and he gets bored or frustrated after about 3 minutes, and it's kind of over.
Yeah, but maybe we can. This is a bigger topic, maybe for another day. But someday we should talk about the youth sports, and it's such a weird thing. Like nowadays, especially when it's like, man, kids get started in these sports so young. Like my daughter's interested in cheerleading, and like all the like she's done a couple like little tiny like cheerleading things where she goes and learns some cheerleading moves and stuff like that. But like all the other parents there are like, oh man, here's like the routine of stuff you got to get her. And if she's interested in cheerleading, you got to like sign her up for this particular gymnastics class that prepares them for cheerleading, and this particular other thing that prepares them for cheerleading. And it's like, oh man, she's like, this was like when she was 6, she first joined, and they were like, oh yeah, you gotta get her in this. Like they were making me feel like I was late to the game. I was like, yeah. So kids in sports is a weird thing.
Right. I think, my wife and I have obviously discussed this because now we have kids and it comes up. And certainly, like, yeah, you're right. Like, there are kids that I know that, like, people would certainly consider my son way behind. Like I said, he's 6 and he hasn't been in any leagues or anything yet. He hasn't gotten any organized practices. And that is certainly, like, there's a host of people out there that are like, oh my God, how could that, you not have done, like, tournaments and leagues and all that. My philosophy is, goddamn, he's a kid, and let's let him, let's let him enjoy life. I know what it's like to have super hectic schedules and be juggling 5 million things and have stress and pressure to perform, and he will have plenty of that. I have no doubt that will be in his future. But you know what? Right now he's 6, and he comes home from school and he like goes and catches bugs in the yard and writes stories and draws books, and he does it at his own pace and he picks his own activities. And I figured this is the only chance in life to do that, and I'm not going to take it away from him. That's that's my 2 cents on it. And if he was like, oh my God, Dad, I want to play tennis 10 hours a day, I'd be like, all right, well let's find a tennis league and get you rocking in it or whatever. Pick your sport, whatever. If there was something like that he was really into, I'd certainly encourage it. But then it would be fun for him, I think. Yeah,
no, I think that's a good philosophy. A good example is our friend and contributor Andy. His son, I want to say it was probably like 5 or 6. I don't remember exactly, but like it was literally like the first time that like they were passing by through the channels and saw like WWE wrestling. He was like entranced, and he was like, I want to do that. So like Andy like got him signed up in some little wrestling league or whatever, and like ever since then it's like he's just been like obsessed with wrestling, and it's never been Andy pushing it. I don't think. He's always just like wanting to go further, and now he's like a ridiculously awesome little kid wrestler. But yeah. So, but I think that's a good example of not pushing your kid towards anything. I am a little bit like torn on that whole issue though. I want to have my daughter. Obviously she's probably not going to be like, I want to try tennis, because she's never played tennis and has no idea, anything about tennis. So I think it is a little bit of a fine line. I wanted to have the opportunity to try some different things and stuff like that, and so I see the benefit of that, of putting her in different sports for a year. But like you said, I'm big too on having free time and the letting kids be kids thing too. So.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that I like it. I think that's the best philosophy personally. But whatever. If you want to like steal your kid's childhood, then go for it.
Nice. Or you could just like let them get fat and wait till they're 32 and they could run a marathon.
There you go.
Be awesome at it, probably.
Probably.
Indeed.
Oh, hey, one thing I want to throw in, and actually this will kind of tie back to the whole marathon training, and more than that, this really goes, and this was with the article that I didn't write this week, as I was like thumbing through things in my mind to write about, and just ran out of time. But and I was thinking about it while I was running, and I think it's a training philosophy, and actually I believe they mentioned it in that movie Generation Iron, but it's the 1% philosophy where every time you go and train, do any exercise or whatever, and this is something that I've always kind of lived by or always tried to do, is you always try and do 1% better every time. So it's, and I think, again, that's why I run well, is because there are tons and tons of people out there that run, and, like, I swear to God, they just don't try. Like when they go for a run, and I mean, I guess there's nothing wrong with it, and it's all about what your goals are, but they just, like, you just plod along and, just kind of, like, certainly not pushing yourself in any way, form, or fashion. Certainly not, like every time I run, no matter how, if it's beginning of season or end of season, if I'm, like, in really good shape and I go for a run, I'm running to the point where my, at least towards the end, when I've got my last 2-mile kick or whatever it is, I want my lungs to burn. I want to run my fastest mile of the year every time I go out training, or I want to run my best pace or my best average, and I want to beat that last run by just a little bit. I mean, obviously it's, you can't plan on just killing it, just beating your old time to death, but just to be that little bit better every time. And the only way you get there is you got to feel like a true burn. You got to really push yourself. And if you're not feeling that, if you're not feeling that push, where you're literally thinking, like, can I really go faster? Can I really, like, where's my limit? And you kind of push that limit every little time. And even like when I lift weights, I mean, like, I do a lot of cardio, and I know I don't eat enough calories to really bulk up or anything like that. But even when I'm, doing weights, I try and always just add a little more each week or each whatever, even each month. Like I said, I'm not a big weightlifting guy, but I try and add that 1%, try and get that just a little bit better. And I think that's a huge key if you want to become. I mean, I guess not to knock the other way, because you can be healthy for sure and never push yourself, never go for that 1%. But if you really want something, like if you want bigger muscles, or if you want a 6-pack abs, or if you want to do well in a race, and I just mean well from your own perspective, you always have to have that push where, like, your lungs are burning, your legs are burning, you think, God, I can't get this last rep up, but you can, and most of the time you just muscle through it mentally, and that's where you really get your gains. That's where you improve yourself, and it's that last little 1%, that last little increase of the time from before, that gets you to that really cool endpoint. So, that's the 1%. So every time I run, I'm always, like, especially my last mile of every run, I always try to make it my fastest mile. And that's really challenging, especially, like, some runs are 8 miles and some runs are 3. So 3-mile runs, you can really kick it hard. 8-mile runs, maybe you won't kill it on the last mile, but you still push it hard enough to keep your average pace a little faster than your average pace from the week before or whatever. So always shoot for that, and you'll know when you're shooting for it, because, man, it friggin' hurts, and it takes mental, like, there's a huge mental fatigue element where you're like, screw this, I'm just going to slow up or pull back or ease up. And when you fight through that little mental hurdle, that's where you, again, really see results and see good gains.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good tip for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Cool.
So I was gonna bring up along those lines. So I want to talk a little bit about failure and what you do when you fail at stuff. Because I honestly had a bad fitness week. I was doing the whole life challenge, and I did a terrible job at the stupid lifestyle challenge this week, which was like, it seems like it should be so easy, just not looking at your like phone or computer or whatever during meals. But I always forgot about it. Like I would almost every day, at least one meal, I would completely forget, and I always basically work through my lunch at work, so I usually would just start eating, and while I'm working, I'd be like, oh crap, well, I lost that. And then I did the stupid thing of being like, well, I guess I ruined today. I might as well just eat something crappy too or whatever.
Oh,
And
no.
ended up losing more points or whatever. So I lost that, and then also to apologize to the viewers and listeners, we both did promise a article this week and both failed on that aspect. So
That I felt bad about. Yeah.
so sorry, readers, but that's okay because we're gonna work through it. We're gonna workshop this and learn from it.
That's
so,
right.
So what do you do when you fail? What do you do when you have a bad week or whatever? Like I know I'll tell you. I'll just before we get to the good stuff, I'll say that I'm really bad at like falling into that trap of once I fail a little bit, being like, well, guess I'll just like restart on Saturday or whatever, or today's dumb toilet, or if it's Thursday, being like, yeah, I guess I'll just take tomorrow off and start next week or whatever. So I'm very bad at that, and I need to work on that. But let's talk about that.
Right. That's that's definitely the mentality that kills a lot of people. Is like the binary approach like that. Like, oh, whoops, I somewhat failed on whatever. Now it's out the window, and I'll start again later. Because that, like you said, that's a horrible philosophy. Because, I mean, like, one, I don't know how to like tell people how to avoid it, but it's certainly what you want to avoid. You can't just let one little stumble ruin it for you. You know what I mean? Like that's just like, I'm sure like a huge, like, again, like a training program like half marathon or whatever, or if you're trying to do like a P90X or anything like that. I know a lot of people, especially, there's a great example, like your infomercial training things, which aren't bad. Like there's a lot of great ones out there, like P90X is good, and Sandy Beachbody has a bunch of them, a bunch of other people have a bunch of them, but like, it's 5 days a week or 6 days a week on those training programs. And a lot of people start them, they get through that first week, and it's tough. And then week number 2, they're halfway through the week, and whatever, life happens, and you cannot fit in your workout because whatever reason. And then that's when people are like, oh crap, well I missed this one. Now I'll just wait till Monday and start it again. And that's, a year later they did the first, 2 weeks and 3 days of their training program. Yeah, so I guess I don't know how to. I don't know what advice to give to stop that from happening, other than just like make, like I wrote an article on goals, and like I think a big part of it is when you can see it written down, and you can see like not like make different sets of goals, like a daily goal, a weekly goal, and an overall goal, or a daily goal, monthly goal, and overall goal, because that way you're less likely to throw in the towel if you're just focused on the day. You know what I mean? If you're like, crap, I lost 1 point, but my goal for this week was to only lose 3 points, then you're still in the game. You're not throwing in the towel, and you're not just giving up until next week, because you can still hit that second goal. And, and I don't know, I guess that's one way to do it. The other way is...
I've had that backfire on me to do the counterpoint where I've like made some super ambitious goal, and then like I get a little behind on it. I'm like, well, I'm clearly not making my goal now. So what? And I wrote it in ink, so I'm screwed.
Right.
but I think it does depend partly too on like where you are in your fitness journey, so to speak. Like if you're just starting out and you're beginning, like I have had many times over the years where I've started a fitness program and then failed a couple times and been like, well, obviously this is unsustainable, I'm out. And so if you're just starting out, I think the important thing is just to forget about it, and the best you can, and just move on, pretend it's your first day, whatever. But if you're further on, I think that's when you have the chance to like actually analyze it and be like, all right, why did I fail? And what can I learn from this and all that stuff. So I think as you grow more mature in your fitness journey, your response to failure is going to change a little bit, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. I think, you know, the the one thing to push for anybody, for any the thing that's going to work for anybody always, 100% of the time, is consistency too. So I don't know, keep that in mind, and I mean like overall consistency. Like you almost should bank that. Yeah, of course, there's going to be days when you fail, unless you're like an ultra perfectionist, and even then you're going to fail from time to time. But just keeping in mind, like it's that consistency that really gets you there. You know, because even if you have big fails, because I've had some times, like, you know, I've been pretty consistently like active and kept up a fitness program for you know, most of my adult life. But there have certainly been times, like months, where I've been like, oh man, you know, it's like life got in the way and I stopped exercising and I didn't exercise for like, you know, 3-4 months. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, that's totally terrible. But the great thing about like having 20 years of really consistent exercise is that once, you know, I get my head back in the game, you pop back really fast. Like getting back up to your last point is way easier than getting there the first time around. So, you know, the longer you're consistent, if you have those fails, the easier it is to get back to where you want to be. So, I mean, I hope, you know, maybe that can help you stay motivated a little bit. So think of it like this: if you can be really fit for 1 year, and then it's just unsustainable or whatever, or something in life happens and you just like fall off the wagon and you kind of lose track of fitness for a couple months or even a year, it'll be a lot easier to get back to that point next time around. And the longer you can do it, you know, if you're like really consistent, and like, you know, if you run marathons and half marathons and you take a year off and don't really run or do any cardio, you'll have these huge gains when you jump back. You know, it doesn't take you another, you know, 6 years to build up to that point. You can do it in a couple months. So
Yeah, no, that's good. It's a great point. I think a good analogy for that, I think, is our website, like taking it out of the fitness realm. Like, so right now we're kind of in the early days of our website. We've got content on there, but we're still building it, still growing it, and all that stuff. And so when we have, like, for the last month, we haven't been super consistent on posting articles. Like, you can definitely see that in the number of visits and stuff. There's definitely been a dip as to where it was. But if we're consistent for a year and totally build that, we're gonna have that content out there. And you know, the dip, if we don't post a new article each week or whatever, is gonna be much lower because we've built up a much bigger base. So that's my non-fitness analogy.
nice.
For any web heads out there, I guess. If you haven't run a website, that'll be great.
All right. So you hear that? Consistency, and don't just hop back on the horse. I don't know, like, do you have any advice on that? Like, how do you get people to, you know, not throw in the towel easily? Like, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, because a lot of people do that, and it's easy to do, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think you were onto something when you said that the idea of like planning for a little bit of failure each week. Like my plan after the Whole Life Challenge is to try and do the Whole Life Challenge lifestyle, basically 6 days a week, and give myself 1 day a week off. And just that way, if I fail, I'll just be like, well, I guess this was my day off, and I'll get back to it. I don't know if that'll work, but I think not expecting yourself to be perfect is a pretty big step in that direction.
Sure, I think so. Hey, speaking of the Whole Life Challenge, what are you? So for those of you that are tuning in the first time, the Whole Life Challenge is this online contest that we've been taking part of and reviewing. I've been doing really poorly on.
You're like Stan Lee. His motto was every comic is somebody's first comic. So we'd always tell Spider-Man's origin story every
right.
issue.
So well, sorry.
Well done.
Thank you. So anyhow, having said that, we're on that. What are you right now going to take away from the Whole Life Challenge? Anything like you think is going to be a permanent fixture from this point out?
I don't know if there's like any one particular thing. I think, I guess maybe the idea of exercising every day is something that was kind of a little bit revolutionary to me. I've always like felt like exercise and then take a day off, exercise then take a day off. Has always been my philosophy. So maybe the idea that you really can exercise each day if you're in. Granted, some days are going to be a little more intense than others and stuff like that. But yeah, I think just the biggest thing for me is going to be that idea that you can do that, and also just the consistency thing, like doing it for 2 months and getting some different measurable results is like a good sign that it stays consistent. I don't know if I have like a real concrete answer to that, but I guess it's more esoteric. But how about yourself?
Sure. Mine's much more specific, I think, just because a lot of the whole life challenge thoughts and philosophies are things I've toyed with over time. Like 1 year, I worked out every day for a year. Well, I think I only missed 1 or 2 days, like out of 365, and it was because I had the flu or whatever. But I like that was my goal, to work out every day for a year. So I've done that before. But my big thing, the thing that caught me off guard that I've never ever toyed with was giving up carbs, giving up essentially like the gluten-free diet and carb-free diet and all that stuff. And I think I'm going to stick with that. I guess the only carbs I'll get are beer because I'm a beer drinker and really like craft beer, so I will continue to drink that. In fact, more of it after the challenge is over than I do now, but because part of my intermediate thing is I only get 1 drink a week. So I drank a Pliny the Elder for all you craft beer drinkers out there. That was my 1 drink of this last week. Anyhow, other than that, yeah, like I think I'm really, especially for this half marathon training, I feel like my joints are feeling better than they normally do, and I think part of it might be the lack of the gluten-free diet thing or whatever, and lack of carbs. Maybe it's just coincidence or whatever, but there's something in what's going on with me right now that, granted I'm only 2 weeks in, I'll see how I feel at the end of training, but yeah, I can certainly tell like my left knee is like one time I overtrained and I've always had like a twinge of pain and issues with it, and I'm not having that this time. So I'm curious to see, especially I certainly will stick with that gluten-free diet until the end of training, till the end of the summer or whatever, till fall. And if I still feel that way, I'm just going to stick with it. And that seems like enough of a benefit for me to say, screw you, bread, I'm out.
Right. One nice thing about the Lift Challenge is it's given us, like, it's long enough that you come up with, like, the first couple weeks, I remember I was like, crap, what could I eat? I had like 4 go-to meals or whatever, but, it's long enough that you develop a little bit of a repertoire of meals, and it's more, after 2 months, it's pretty sustainable, I think.
Oh, yeah. Like I've you know me, I've toyed with diets a lot over time. Just really like personal experiments, seeing what works and what doesn't. And I know for doing like various things that like any diet you choose, like if you cut out carbs or go vegan or do whatever, after a long enough timeline, it just becomes like a normal eating. Except vegan, actually, I guess is the only friggin' pain in the butt one, but only because we live in America and it's so like everything has to be so special ordered. It's so hard to eat out in restaurants. It's so hard to eat at other people's houses. But pretty much anything else, like Whole Life Challenge, paleo, all that stuff. No matter where you go, people have meat. That's an American staple, and they have vegetables. And if you're not like hyper concerned about, like I said, about being vegan or if there's whatever on them and all that stuff, those 2 things are super easy to get in almost any scenario. If you go to a barbecue, they're going to have a fruit bowl or dish or some strawberries, and they're going to have hamburgers that you don't need the buns for. So it's a really easy one to do. And then in your own home, a million great tasting recipes that you can do on it. So it's, I think, a really sustainable and really healthy. I'm starting to be pretty sold. I still think red meat's pretty close to the devil, but other than that, I think it's a really healthy, good way to go.
Cool. Good deal. So the last thing I want to talk about was talk about this quick, and then we'll cut it off. So I was turning on my PlayStation the other day, PlayStation 3, and it's got a little message that pops up in the corner, like saying new games and stuff like that. and what the new games are out, whatever new us is out. And they had one that popped up the other day that was like, get the world's best workouts on your PlayStation 3. So I was like, what is this? And I wanted to learn more. So I did. I learned more about it. And have you heard of this, Jonathan? The Daily Burn. Have you heard of this program?
Yeah. I know I've totally heard of it. Like the name's super familiar, but I can't place it.
Well, so basically, like, if you think of like let's take like Beachbody as an example. So they're like a fitness company. They've got a bunch of different programs based on what you're going for and what your needs are and stuff like that. And you can like buy these various programs. So this Daily Burn thing is basically a similar company, but they do it by like a subscription model. If you think of like Netflix Instant or something like that, where basically you pay $10 a month and you have access to all their stuff. And not only that, you like fill out, like I was playing with it, trying to get to the point of where I had to sign up, but not quite, where you like do this little like 4-question questionnaire kind of thing, like how much time do you have, what kind of body type are you going for, what results do you want, that kind of stuff. And it recommends one of the programs, and if you pick one of the programs, it basically like delivers one of the workouts to you each day, so it just automatically delivers the next one. You can do it on like your Xbox, PlayStation, your Roku, your iPad, your the device of your choice or whatever. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and they actually have a 30-day trial. So I was gonna recommend that we do it after your half marathon training is done and everything like that. Maybe we should give this a try and just see for 30 days free trial, see what it's all about.
Yeah, that sounds actually like a really cool thing. I'd be in for it. I was also thinking, we totally should do another thing after the Whole Life Challenge anyway, so maybe the Daily Burn will be it.
Yeah.
And I'm, again, like I mentioned it before, I'm a big fan of essentially like the infomercial workout programs. Because one, I mean, most of them are sound. They're made by a trainer, and in the end, some are better than others, but they're always like, you're up moving and exercising for 30 minutes to an hour, 5-6 days a week. So you're getting I mean, if your goal is health, that's really all you need to do. I mean, that's giving you, getting your body going, keeping it up. So I'd be up for trying the Daily Burn, spice things up, keep it interesting, see if there's some new workouts out there.
By the way, this was a screw you Google moment for me, where I literally I was sitting here waiting for you while you were having some technical issues, and I went. It's been a few weeks ago that I looked at the Daily Burn, and I was like, so I was going to refresh myself. So I went to dailyburn.com, refreshed myself on the details, went to that on my laptop. Okay, you were still not there, so I picked up my phone, went to Facebook on my phone. The top ad I saw was Daily Burn. It's like, you sons of bitches, you tracked me down and you knew that I just looked at Daily Burn, didn't you? Yeah, dang it.
Yeah.
A bunch of jerks. Anyway, so I think that'll do it for today.
Do you have a song?
I am going to be honest and say I do not have a song. Do you have a song?
I do.
All right.
Throwing out, this is Faith, but not the George Michael's version, the Limp Bizkit version.
Oh man, we're breaking out Limp Bizkit. All right. Cool.
Breaking out Limp Bizkit. That was we'd always listen to that and get all jazzed up and then go out to party at college. So why not? Right. You can listen to it and work out instead. So
cool. All right. Well, we will add it to the list. Hey, head over to realdadfitness.com. We got a new Fat Dad article went up today, so you can check that out. And maybe me and Jonathan will get off our butts and do an article one of these days. And
maybe.
If not, we'll definitely be back with a podcast next week. So subscribe on iTunes, subscribe to YouTube, wherever you're subscribing. And maybe the next ad you see on top of Facebook will be for Real Dad Fitness. I don't know. Probably not, though, because we're pretty cheap. That'll do it for us. We'll talk to you next time. This is PT. I got to run.
All right, Dad. Stay real, stay fit. This is Jonathan. We'll see you next week.